Yeah, I have no fear that teachers will be replaced by AI. There's no part of an inkling of that. I'm like, oh no, then the robots are going to come and we're not going to have a space for teachers, right? Like, ultimately, when it comes to values and emotions, like families are the compass for that. And so your school is a support, it's a partner, and you still have some autonomy as as a parent.
So, the question today, which is looming large over our heads, is that what does it really mean to teach now in a world where the answers are available everywhere? Welcome back to Thinking Aloud, a space where we pause, reflect, and rethink education one conversation at a time. I am Urvi Gugnani, your host, an educator, a parent, and someone who constantly wonders that are we preparing our children for the world ahead or are we preparing them for the world which has gone by? And for today's episode 3, the conversation is going to be around that in today's time, do you think that a strong curriculum matters more than ever when in the world of AI? And to unravel this mystery, today I'm joined by Cindy Blackburn, an educator, a curriculum developer, and currently the Director of Learning and Engagement with Toddle, your teaching partner. She has been working with schools and teachers all across the globe to meaningfully integrate AI and to also upgrade the learning experiences for our children. Welcome to our podcast, Cindy. I'm so glad that you're here with us today.
Corby, I'm so honored that you asked me. Thanks so much for starting this conversation.
Yes. So, Cindy, we'll just dig right in. And my first question to you is that AI can today give you answers at the drop of the hat, can design lesson plans, can even do our children's homework. So, do you think that curriculum even matters today? Or do you think that in today's day and time, a curriculum matters more than ever?
Well, I'm incredibly biased here because I'm a curriculum nerd. I always think that curriculum is the foundation for great change in schools, and now more than ever, right? So when we're talking about what exactly a curriculum is, it's identifying as a school community what's worth knowing, what's worth understanding, and what's worth being able to do. So while our curriculum might shift as a result of curriculum or as a result of AI, it's questions worth asking, right? Because we don't exactly know what the skills of the future will be. But by having those conversations, by intentionally planning around them, we make sure that we ground ourselves and make sure that as a school, we are moving towards the future and not just kind of reflecting and doing what was taught before.
Oh, that really shifts the narrative, doesn't it? It's like it's not about being scared of AI. I think so. It's more
Mm.
about being intentional in choosing what really matters and what's going to help the children ahead is what I can really take away.
Yeah, I think whenever there's a technology change, there's this fear that comes in, whether that's books, were a technology that threatened learning and what was worth learning and knowing. Will we function a society where we don't have to memorize everything? Then we switched to calculators. Will that shift mathematics instruction? Is math even worth learning anymore? And then we go to one. And what we see is that there's this initial wave of fear and panic. But at the end of the day, when you kind of look backwards, there are these through lines of what matters in education. Developing curious students, developing students who are critical thinkers, who apply their knowledge to new and novel contexts. These are skills that don't change, right? So as much as it might be flashy and exciting and interesting, getting really grounded in a school of what do we value, what do we bring to the table, what do we offer, again, always conversations worth having.
Yes, and I think so because when everything is available, the
Mm,
discernment becomes the real skill. I mean, really
yes.
discovering what is important. Like you said, have focusing on skills like critical thinking, the 21st century skills really becomes the need of the hour. And with that, I feel that a strong curriculum definitely will, help us prepare the children for the future. Now, when we talk about a strong curriculum, what really we mean by that? And if I was to enter a classroom which has a strong curriculum and a class which does not have one, I mean, what would be the difference in terms of what I see, what I hear?
That is such a lovely question. And it's one that can feel almost ambiguous. I think when you say the word curriculum, people think a lot of different things, right? So I think the simplest working definition of our curriculum is explicitly laying out what students will know, the facts, knowledge, information, what they'll understand, the big ideas and concepts and connecting ideas, what they'll be able to do, the skills, like how they'll actually use their knowledge, and their dispositions. Who are they becoming as a result of their time with us? So I would say a great school and a great teacher is able to answer those questions with clarity, right? They know that in this next 6 weeks, my students are here, and this is where I hope that they will get, and these are the best strategies I think to get them there. And I think that's really what the difference is in the classroom is you would feel a sense of clear communication, that learners are part of the discussion, that there's not guesswork of what they're doing or why they're doing it, that they're aware of the importance of their learning goals and they're actively engaged in tuning into them and finding out what they already know, what they're curious about, what they think is important. And in those classrooms, it just becomes the bridge to everything else, right? To student curiosity, to personalized learning, because we're all clear of where we are and where we're going, but there's infinite pathways for how to get there. But without that clarity, that's like, just starting to drive and not really knowing where you're going and just hoping it's a pretty trip.
Yes, I mean, what you've said is so important that a strong curriculum is not just about doing more. I think so. It's
Hmm.
about having the clarity and doing it intentionally so that you're doing what really matters. And also connecting to the prior knowledge of the children, to their curiosity, to their interest, so that you also feel the love. And I think so, then the love just kind of transcends.
I love that you said love because I think that can be so hard to quantify, and I think because of that, it's like, how do you measure it? But you can feel the joy of a connected curricular classroom when a teacher really has ownership and autonomy over what students are learning, when students have some ownership and autonomy over what they're learning. There's this cultural shift and excitement that just is palpable. It's this own magical little world that's being co-constructed in a classroom that leads to just so many lovely things in the world. And it really is cemented by that trust and love missing in so many school ecosystems.
Absolutely. And I think so. That's why a strong curriculum, as you just shared, matters more than ever, which is rooted in bringing that joy in learning. And at the same time, now I think so, what has also happened is that there are a lot of school ecosystems which are moving towards having a stronger curriculum. So, definitely, when it comes to the teachers who are at the heart or at the center of this change, sometimes they feel that there is an increase in the workload, there's that
Mm.
learning fatigue, and then there are so many AI tools out there for them to, like, really look at, and many a times they just feel overwhelmed. So what will be your mantra that you can give to them, that how they should be meaningfully integrating AI so that they do not lose the essence of teaching?
Oof. I mean, isn't that the poignant question of the day, right? How do we keep doing the work that's worth doing ourselves? And how do we delegate the work to AI
Hmm.
that isn't that work? And it's such a personal answer. And I think that's where so many folks go wrong is saying, like, this is the answer to that question. My biggest advice, I think, would be to do a time audit. So, as a teacher, to really track, in the myopic details, how are you spending? Let's say you've got, a planning block. How are you spending every 5 minutes of that planning block? Awesome. So, first, just track it. Then go back and look at it and say, what were the parts of this that brought me joy, that really felt like, yeah, this is what it means to be a teacher? Because for one teacher, that might be grading. And they're like, when I'm grading student work, that's when I feel most alive. For another teacher like me, it was curriculum work. It was digging back through the standards and unpacking them into rubrics and learning goals, right? So figure out what are those things, your 20% time, your things that light you up, fire you up, feel like they're worth doing, and then start to focus your attention on those other things that are more just tasks that you tick off. And those are the tasks that are really worth leveraging to AI, right? Like for me, if I could have had a tool that did most of the grading for me and then I got the synthesis to keep planning forward, that would have been awesome. For another teacher, they would hear that and go, no, 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 I can't have the AI do the grading. That's my thing, right? So I think knowing where you feel like you have the most power and really holding on to that and then you can find the tools to do anything. Like Toddle, like within Toddle, you can lesson plan, you can differentiate, you can do assessment and grading. You could do all of it, but what parts are worth it for you?
Yes, and I think so. I really liked it that it's about first identifying that, that what is it that really makes you passionate about teaching, finding that core area or skill, and then whatever is it that you feel that you can kind of give it on to AI, pass it on to AI to help you with. But at the same time, the next question that comes to my mind is that what is it that you feel should never be passed on to AI?
I don't think anything is sacred. And I think that is, I think many people have things in their classroom or their practice that are sacred. Like, okay, so for me, the most sacred thing is curriculum design, right? I adore it. I think there's so much value in like taking the time to read through your standards and unpack them and understand them and discuss them as a team. And I do think that work you can leverage AI to do it and do it faster and do it easier and get there quicker, right? So I think where I would fall to like a firm line is it's when it removes the thinking, right? So if it's offloading that beautiful cognitive work that leads to better conversations and better understanding, and you're just doing it just like to kind of pass it off, that would be, I guess, the task you wouldn't want to do. But I don't think anything's sacred. Do you feel like there's something that AI shouldn't do?
So I had recently overheard a conversation where somebody was talking about how to integrate AI into the field of education. And
Hmm.
what they said was something, which is like very similar to what you've just shared with us. That whenever you think about integrating an AI tool or taking the help of AI, first
Mm.
understand it is just another tool which is going to help you in the teaching. It will never replace you as a teacher. It can never replace your thinking, your critical thinking skills. So before you're using AI, you have to be intentional about why you're going to use AI. What is the
Mm.
purpose that you want to use it for? And once it gives you or it curates something for you, which you think is really nice, you then have to kind of modify it to fit into your learning experience so that each and
Mm.
every child, because you know the children best, that's something that AI cannot tell you. It can just design those learning engagements, but then you can modify it to fit and tailor made it to the child's needs. So
Love that. It's the model that you see sometimes like it's like the human AI sandwich, right? Like you
yeah,
want a human on the first part, the iteration and the critical thinking, and then you want a human on the other part on the output and making sure it makes sense. But ideally, most of that really hard work in between, you can delegate, but being intentional on either side of it.
yes, I think so. That balance is very important because it's not like that the AI is, not going to be there. It is going to be there, but it's about how do we use
Mhm.
it to increase the efficiency. And when it comes to the teachers, I mean, nothing can replace the connection, the intuition that a teacher has, the understanding of different learners in a classroom.
Yeah, I have no fear that teachers will be replaced by AI. There's no part of an inkling of that. I'm like, oh no, then the robots are going to come and we're not going to have a space for teachers, right? Like it is any human profession where you have that requires empathy and that requires adaptation on the fly, that requires relationships. Those are the safest jobs in the world right now. So I think teachers, if you're feeling fear about AI taking your job, release that.
Yes.
Well, and so much of the stuff we've known about since the 80s, right? Like mastery-based learning and the power of one-on-one tutoring. And we just haven't had the capacity for it. So I think in some ways that panacea, that like that golden age of education that we've all been pining for, but it's always been, yeah, but oh, but then there's so many of those barriers are being limited by AI. So how do we use this as an opportunity to really make transformative change, not just kind of pivot or tweak or just add it onto a broken system?
What can parents do? Because many a time, because we are at the center of it, the teachers, we know a lot about the change. But when it comes to the parents, they feel
Hmm.
helpless. They don't know that, how much the education system has evolved and what exactly is there in the future and how can they really help the children.
I think it's so fun. I hope that there are families listening. And what we find is that there tends to be this really big divide happening right now, right? So on one side of the camp, we have families saying, we've got to ban this. I can't have my student doing this. They're going to not be able to think. They're not going to be able to have creativity. They're just going to be stuck to their computers. Really, there's the fear camp. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have families saying, we need to upskill our kids. We need to make sure that they're ready for this. I want to make sure they're ready for the future. So both of those spaces have value, right? Like there's not one that's right or wrong. So I think the tension that exists is how do we preserve, what we value and when the goals that we have for our students, for our learners, for our children, and how do we equip them for the future? And honestly, that's a tension that always exists in schools. How do we move forward while holding on to what we value, but also, staying future minded? The best thing you can do as a family member, I think, is to have these conversations with your kids because kids are so smart and they're so aware of all of this. And I think there's this fear that students have, like, I don't want to be perceived as cheating. I don't want to be perceived as this way, but I also don't know what's going to be expected of me in the future. So, leading with that lens of curiosity as families, um, voicing your concerns to your school and also listening to their responses of what they're creating and having your voice be part of that, I think is so lovely. And there's lots of great research out there about the skills that are worth learning. So if your school is not yet implementing an AI curriculum, start practicing at home. Simple things like use it to craft a recipe together or use it to make your weekend plan together and talk about what you notice, what feels sticky to you, what feels like a moral dilemma. Like, would you use this to write a birthday card? Why or why not?
Mm.
Right? Having those conversations at home and whatever you value, making sure that yeah, ultimately, when it comes to values and emotions, like families are the compass for that. And so your school is a support, it's a partner, and you still have some autonomy as a parent.
Then I think so. This has been such a grounding conversation, Cindy. In a world where everything is moving so fast, I feel this reminds us that we need to be anchored in what truly matters in terms of our values, skills, dispositions. Because maybe the real question is not about will AI change education, but maybe the question is that are we really ready to be intentional enough to do what matters? So I think,
Gorgeous.
and I would like to thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. And I am sure there are a community of parents, educators, and leaders out there are going to learn so much from this.